Well, I'd say that the participants also set themselves up. I mean, you're talking about you've got an addict and you've got a drug dealer, and there's no doubt that there's a dealer establishment, but the addict is also partly to blame for their own behavior.
I agree to you. I mean, I agree to a certain extent, but that's like saying a 10-year-old who gets kidnapped, it's partly their fault. And it is true. They went in the front yard. They went down the street. They talked to strangers. They wanted to see the puppy dog.
That's a terrible analogy. You know, we got real challenges ahead of us. The dollar is disintegrating. We know that. That's what's currently happening right now. The dollar is losing value. Like pretty much every day that the market is open is a day to sell more dollars. Gold is rising. Oil is rising. And it's not just the dollar that's weak. It's also the currencies in the United Kingdom, and it's also the other westernized nations, because none of these countries are really viable going concerns. We don't export anything. And we can't produce things.
Globalism did this to us. Tax incentives to move overseas.
I'm sorry?
I know, but we were set up. We were pushed into this. Big government did this.
Well, I think it's kind of a cycle of how societies run.
I agree with you. How high is gold going to go?
Good question. It could absolutely go through the roof. I mean, it could go $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 an ounce. It's hard to say. The trend is up.
And what is it trending towards over 2,000? The next 12 months?
Hard to say.
This is an incredible interview. Damon Vickers. I'm going to try to twist his arm maybe 10, 15 of the next hour so we can take these calls. This guy, he's giving me a run for my money. He may be Beelzebub. All right, folks, I got one more silver dollar, and they're not gonna catch me. No, I'm not gonna let them catch me. Not gonna let them catch the Midnight Rider. I tell you, this is an impressive interview, and I look forward to future debates with him. We really appreciate Damon Vickers, DamonVickers.com, coming on with us. He is the Chief Investment Officer with 9 Points Management and Research. And he's one of the nicer, formerly East Coast Blue Bloods here, hooked up with the Rockefellers and others. And he is talking about the world government coming in, and he is talking about the end of the dollar. And we're going to, when we start the next hour, take your calls for all of you that are holding Shanky, Andrew, Karen, Anita, and others. But just briefly, we were talking during the break. You're saying, look, I grew up in a Buddhist monastery or lived in one. I'm not Beelzebub. That was a joke. I apologize. I just meant you speak with a silver tongue, and I understand it's a very convincing argument. But are you saying world government is a foregone?
My dad left Goldman Sachs, gave up all of that, gave up the Brooks Brothers, gave up all that stuff, and I would sit and meditate with my father at 5:30 in the morning. I lived in a monastery called Odeon. I'm one of only 3 kids that ever lived there. It's on 1,100 acres, and it's a Tibetan Buddhist monastery, like for real. And what they're all about is trying to alleviate human suffering. So all of us would agree that suffering is something that we want to avoid, and that we don't like seeing others.
Yeah, but you're saying the system's bad we've got now.
We like seeing our planet suffer, and that we are living out of balance, and that we need to get not only the United States back into balance, but the world back into balance.
As Prince Philip says, we need to cull. Prince Philip says we need to cull 80%. You're not for culling people, are you?
No, I'm not for culling people, but on the other hand, you've got if you're a West Indian down in the Caribbean, you think it's your right to have 28 kids, and they do. I've met them, and it's not sustainable. Many of those islands in the Caribbean they were paradise, and now they're not paradise at all.
Well, let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this. Here's the deal.
They can't feed themselves, and they're running out of space. It's horrific.
Here's what I have to say to you, though. That's why I made Endgame Blueprint for Global Enslavement my film about eugenics, because I agree with you that we should have a debate about this, and people should know. All these people eating McDonald's hamburgers, living in trailers, partying, watching porn, and having abortions, they don't realize that the elite have decided to kill their butts. So I mean, I'm just glad that you're just being honest about all this. I'm not saying you're calling for killing people. You know, you're kind of the soft touch in all this. But I'm telling you, this is real, and the public better grow up and get off their fat butts.
Our planet cannot support every one of us going out there and having 24 and 28 kids. It's just there's not enough. It's not sustainable.
Well, here's another problem. Only educated people are dying out. The West has 1.3 replacement for every 2 adults. And so the West is saying they want to target the West for no one to have kids. So the West has to die, and then everybody else can have 500 kids?
No, nobody needs to be targeted, but we need to recognize and come into common understanding and belief about what our relationship is to one another and what our relationship is to the planet that we live on, and try to live responsibly. And having 16 and 28 kids is not responsible. I think all of us could agree to that. Wouldn't you agree to that, Alex?
But the minute you don't let somebody have 10 kids, then you can't have 2.
Okay, and there are nations that believe it's their right to deforest their rainforests, but these are the lungs of the planet. Should they be allowed to do that because it's their sovereign right?
Well, the nations, that's the oil companies. And Al Gore owns Occidental Petroleum. He isn't calling for stopping that. He wants to tax what plants breathe. That's what I mean, is that we're just evil. And no matter what we do, it's going to hell in the handbasket. And all these globalists have these great reasons we should sell out to them. But that brings more destruction. Stay with us. All right, we're going right to your calls. But Damon Vickers wanted to make one more point before we do it. Go ahead, sir.
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, I am for people, and I'm for joy and happiness and love to be in greater abundance on this planet. And to do that, I think we have to elevate our consciousness to realize that we're all connected and that we're all a part of the same family, the human family, and we have to respect one another. And sometimes the only way that you can actually even get to that point is through some type of a crisis or an event that brings us together. But
Al Gore, they're now saying, is our global priest, president of the world. That's in the newspaper today. Let me tell you, my discernment...
I don't think he has enough charisma, quite frankly, to be that, but okay.
This guy that sold us on NAFTA and GATT now wants me to pay carbon tax that this apple breathes to him, so I'll all be safe. I mean, I'm just saying, this guy's the head of the New World Order. I ain't buying it.
I doubt that's true.
A giant demonic Nelly.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. This is not my cup of tea. Listen, let's go to Shanky in Georgia. Shanky, quick, go ahead.
Hey, Alex, thanks. It's been a great conversation, and I really enjoyed it because I'm right in the middle of both of you. Because I'm on Damon's side on a lot of things, and yours on the other. To get to Damon and what he does for a living, out there right now, there are a lot of top callers. You've done very good in the past at calling tops. We can all see the top coming now, and you talk about riding the trends, and the trend is your friend. But the crash of the dollar, I'm a big proponent of this, to wrestle this market away from the manipulators at this point in time, that it's going to take some type of external event, and could it be the crash of the dollar? People are talking about wars, whatever. Can I get your opinions on that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, the trend for the dollar is decidedly lower. Trend for gold, oil, obviously decidedly higher. Do we need some type of an event? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the war thing. I mean, ultimately, I think what you're saying is ultimately, does the government create some type of a global distraction to juice the dollar? Well, they've done that a couple of times in the past. I don't think they're really at that right now. I think their mindset is that a lower dollar juices exports, is good for the economy, and because they're not innovators, because Obama is not an entrepreneurial genius, he's a very well-spoken politician that delivers incredible speeches. So I really, 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 really profoundly hope that it doesn't take some type of a global war for us to revive the economy of us exporting military machinery over into kind of an apocalyptic.
But the Rand Corporation is saying that's what they need, and that looks like where they're moving the next 2 years with Iran.
I hope not. I really hope not.
Damon, you bring up a key point here, though. The numbers are in. Manufacturing's down, even with a weaker dollar that should boost it. That doesn't bode well for the White House strategy.
No, it doesn't work. Destroying the dollar, inevitably doesn't work. There's an end game, and the end game is that you don't have a currency at all.
And then that replaces
90% of its value since 1971. So,
and that gets replaced with SDRs or a basket of currencies or a new global cashless thumbprint system.
Well, I don't know that we're moving towards a thumbprint system. I think that if you see that the countries and that have things like oil, like resources, Australia, South Africa,